Hello learners, welcome back to the video sessions. In this session, we will discuss about who is an effective counselor. As you know, counseling is a professional career, and as we have discussed in the previous video, one needs to look into three main aspects while choosing a career. Career counseling involves knowing about oneself, knowing about the career itself, and working out which career will be the best in the specific context of the individual. So, when we are talking about counseling as a career, it will also require you to focus on these aspects. Thus, you need to know and understand about yourself, that is, what are your motivations, what are your interests, your abilities, or the skills that you have, the values that you have. So, all these things you need to know about yourself. Secondly, you need to know about the counseling profession itself. That is, what it is, how does it occur, how does counseling occur, what qualities are required in this profession, what qualifications are required, how to get trained for this particular profession, and how to be effective in this profession. And then find out how it will work out in your specific context. So that means you need to know about your own self, you need to know about the profession of counseling, the counseling profession itself, and then you have to work it out how it will work out in your specific context. However, in counseling profession, it becomes all the more important because it deals with human beings. In counseling, you are required to interact with another person, another individual, and form a therapeutic relationship with that person or the client. Okay. And as a result of which, you have to learn how to handle your emotions. Sometimes the clients will share their emotions, their suffering. So you need to learn how to handle all these things. Okay. So you need to understand their issues, the concerns that they are sharing, the challenges that they are going through. So all this require you to conduct yourself in an ethical manner also. So thus it is pertinent to be an effective counselor, as you will be dealing with an individual, dealing with the relationship with that particular person, a therapeutic relationship with that particular person. You are dealing with the emotions and the suffering that the person is sharing with you, the issues and the concerns. Okay. Sometimes the client will be sharing very intimate things to you. Okay. So you also need to be able to handle it properly in an ethical manner. So that is why it is very important that to be effective in providing counseling. So here let us discuss certain prerequisites in counseling. There are certain prerequisites for being an effective counselor. First is professional education and training. Second is personal qualities. Third is ethical principles, and fourth is licensing. So first of all, let us discuss about professional education and training. Now this comes from your educational qualification that you have attained. Okay. One needs to have at least a master's degree in psychology or counseling, and you may acquire additional diploma or certificate in counseling. So this qualification, it provides you the theoretical knowledge as well as it provides you the practical training in counseling, because both theory and practical both are essential to become a counselor. In theory, you get to learn about the various aspects of counseling, like for example, you learn about what exactly is counseling. In the first video, you have understood about what is counseling. There we have discussed about how we can differentiate between counseling, guidance and psychotherapy, and also how it is different informal counseling and formal counseling, because counseling is a very commonly used term and we use it very frequently in our day-to-day interactions. So as a part of your training, as a part of your this educational qualification, in the theoretical aspects you will be learning about what exactly is the meaning of professional counseling, or when we talk about psychological counseling. Okay. So you will also learn as part of your theory why counseling is needed, what is the need and importance of counseling, at various stages at various developmental stages. You will also learn about how counseling progresses, what are the different stages of counseling, the theories of counseling, the various types of counseling that are given, and also you will learn about how do we do assessment in counseling, because assessment is an important part of counseling that provides you information about the particular person, about the different aspects of the person's life. So assessment needs to be conducted in a proper way. And what are the different areas in which counseling can be applied, that also you will be learning as part of your theory. Okay. In addition, you will be learning about the ethical aspects or the ethical issues also when you are providing counseling to the client. Okay. As I said earlier, that since this involves another individual and there is a relationship between two persons, the client and the counselor, it has to be ethically conducted. So that is why, as to become an effective counselor, you need to know about the ethical principles that are there and what are the ethical issues that may arise in the process of providing counseling. Now, the practical training or the internship in counseling, this provides intensive exposure and practice in counseling. The student works under the supervision of their teachers and they learn about how to provide counseling in the actual field, in the actual context. So there is continuous supervision from senior professionals in the field. So this is also required for a practicing counselor. Once you have started practicing as a counselor, continuous supervision is required because it helps one to improve in one's practice. It helps to know about the limitations of yourself. Also, it helps to gain an alternative perspective on the counseling case and also on the way one is practicing counseling. So as a result of which, it will help you improve your counseling and it will sharpen your counseling skills also, and you can try out different counseling techniques also. In addition, continuing education is also required to keep the counselor up to date. Now, as a person, each one of us have different qualities. Now, counseling as a profession, it requires different personal qualities so that you can become an effective counselor, because counseling deals with human beings and its goal is to help the clients gain an understanding of themselves. So, the client should have self-understanding, the client should be able to understand the issues or the concerns that they are facing. So, the goal of counseling is to help the clients gain self-understanding, relate with the client at an empathy level. As a counselor, you need to be relating to the client at an empathy level, that is, develop an empathic understanding with the client and help the client in achieving success or achieving well-being or happiness in their life. So let us see what are the different qualities that an effective counselor needs to have. First of all, counselor needs to have a natural interest in people. Okay, you need to be naturally interested in people, in helping out other people. Secondly, you need to explore your motivations. Why you want to become a counselor? Is it that you want recognition and this profession will give you recognition in the society, that is why you want to enter into this counseling profession? Or you yourself has different kind of issues or frustration or anxieties or conflicts, and or you are feeling lonely, or you have unresolved trauma or unresolved sufferings. This profession will give you that opportunity to vent all this out or express all this out. So that is why you want to come to this profession. Or is it that you want to interact with various people? So that is why you want to enter into this profession. So all this, when you are saying about these motivations, all these motivations are called as negative motivations. You have to, to become an effective counselor, you need to explore what are your motivations. So you need to be clear about what are the harmful motivators and what are the positive motivators or beneficial motivators. For example, the positive motivators or beneficial motivators, which helps our sensitivity. You have a sensitivity towards people, you are caring towards other people, you have a helping attitude towards other people, you are thinking of good for others, and you are having humanistic values and a genuine desire to help others. So these are all beneficial motivators, or we can say positive motivators, and this will help you in becoming an effective counselor, these personal qualities that you are having. So, an effective counselor needs to have empathy for others, a caring attitude towards others, a natural interest to help others. All these things we can say that if the person is having empathic understanding, that means because when the client comes to you with different issues or anxieties or sufferings that the person is undergoing through, as a counselor, you need to have an empathic attitude towards the other person. So, as a result of all these things, having a caring attitude or a natural interest to help others, or establishing an empathic understanding with the client, all these things will help in empowering the client, because ultimately in the counseling relationship, one of the objective is that as a counselor you need to empower the client to be able to take uh, proper decisions, to be able to make proper choices and arrive at an effective solution. Okay. It will also help facilitate the client's well-being. Okay. So as a counselor, you also need to have good communication skills and emotion regulation skills. Okay, because unless you are able to regulate your own emotions and communicate effectively with the client will not feel confident in sharing things with you, and the relationship between the client and the counselor, that will not be therapeutic. Further, the counselor need to be sincere and honest to their work. Okay. They need to think from the client's point of view and their well-being. Many times what happens is that counselors, as a counselor, we are also human beings. So as a human being, as an individual, we have our own values, we have our own opinions, beliefs, judgments. So when a client comes to you, as a counselor, your own values, judgments should not influence your interacting with the client, because the client has their own values or judgments or opinions or belief systems. So as a counselor, one needs to be non-judgmental, uh, operating in a fair manner, and thinking from the client's point of view and thinking from the client's well-being point of view. So that is why no harm should be done to the client. Okay, that is one of the ethical principles that you will be coming to know when we are discussing about the ethical principles. The point here is that you need to be in the client's shoes and then think from the client's point of view, and take care that your own values, judgments are not influencing your dealing with the client. As a counselor, you need to take care of your own well-being also, because when you are dealing with the client, discussing about different issues and client sufferings or concerns and anxieties or the frustration of the client, it might happen that you might experience a little a sense of depression, or you might feel frustrated, or you might feel negative emotions. Okay, so that is why as a counselor it is very important that you need to take care of your own well-being also. So we talk about compassion fatigue here. Okay, compassion fatigue is that when one becomes indifferent to people who are in distress because of overexposure to such instances. So in your counseling practice, when you are dealing with so many clients with so much suffering and all these negative emotions, it might happen that you might develop compassion fatigue. You might become indifferent to the client's sufferings. So you need to take care of this aspect, and also you might feel exhaustion, that is, we say that burnout. So as a counselor practicing in the field, you need to one is to take care of the compassion fatigue, one is to take care of the burnout feeling also. So that is how one can be operating in more effective manner. So One more aspect here that we talk about is effective counselors need to have multicultural competence. Okay. So what is multicultural competence? Especially in India, when we have clients from diverse backgrounds, diverse social status, socioeconomic conditions, or different religions or cultural backgrounds. So this difference in all these aspects might be influencing clients differently. And as a counselor, you might be belonging to a particular religion, particular culture, or particular social status. So that there is a chance that this might affect your way of interacting with the client. So in order to become an effective counselor, we also need to look at this aspect also, okay, and take care that this is not affecting the in your interaction with the client. So you need to be aware of your own values, judgments, that these are not interfering in the process of counseling. So thus counselors need to have technical competence as well as interpersonal competence. In the technical competence, the professional education, the qualifications that you have earned, that is required, and the particular counseling skills that you are acquiring, the practical or the internship that you are doing, that provides you with the necessary skills and techniques of counseling and how you are going to conduct counseling. So all these are technical competence. In addition to this, you have to have interpersonal competence where your personal qualities come into picture. You need to have empathic understanding. You need to conduct yourself in a proper way, taking care of taking care of the client's well-being. Okay. So a combination of technical competence and interpersonal competence will give you effectiveness in providing counseling to the client. So now let us see the third aspect of becoming an effective counselor. The third one is ethical principles. Okay. Now, as I have been emphasizing you, the counselor-client relationship, it is a therapeutic relationship. Okay. So in this relationship, we need to look into what are the ethical principles that we need to take care of, okay, so that the relationship becomes effective and the relationship serves the purpose or the goal for which it is being created. So the counselor-client relationship, it is very fundamental to provide effective counseling, and it is important that the counselor knows and practices the ethical principles. It is not only that the counselor should be knowing the ethical principles, because in the theory part, when we are discussing about the professional counseling, the professional educational qualification that you need, so there in the theory portion you have studied about the ethical principles, that is in theory. But when you are talking about the practice, in practice also you need to know how to practice the ethical principles. And what are the objectives of these ethical principles? Why do we need these ethical principles? Because the objective of these ethical principles is to safeguard both the client as well as the counselor's interest and their well-being. In the earlier this thing I have told you that it is very important for the counselor also to take care of their well-being. The client, the objective of counseling is that we take care of the client's interest, we try to enhance the client's well-being, we try to address the client's concerns, and our objective is to facilitate the client in achieving happiness and well-being. Similarly, as a counselor in this counselor-client relationship, you also need to safeguard your own interests, your own well-being also. So we can say that all these ethical principles, it is very important to know about. For example, one ethical principle that is very important here is that confidentiality. Okay. In the counselor-client relationship, the client shares with the counselor various things, various aspects of personal life with the counselor. So as a counselor, it is very important that this is kept confidential. It did not be shared with the other persons or other family members of the client or anywhere outside. So the things shared by the client need to remain confidential, and counselor should not share these to others, not even the other family members, without the consent of the concerned client. Okay, because this might affect the client's trust on you, the client's confidence on you. Okay, and also it might affect the it is also against the professional ethics of this profession, counseling profession. Okay. Of course, we can say that there are certain exceptions where this confidentiality can be breached. Okay. Like for example, if the client's life is in danger. Okay. For example, if the client has come to you and you are knowing that the client might commit suicide, or there is a danger on the client's life. So in those cases, in those instances, the counselor may share information with others, other concerned authorities or individuals. Okay. Similarly, there are other instances also where this confidentiality can be breached. Okay. You will come to know about these things in detail in a later video. Another ethical principle I can just highlight here is that beneficence. The counselor needs to keep in mind the welfare of the client. Okay. Because ultimately, when the client comes to you with their own personal problems or issues, the client should be able to pose faith on you, trust you. Okay. So that is why the client's well-being should be the topmost priority for the counselor. Whatever the counselor's actions are, whatever the counselor is saying or behaving or communicating to the client, or whatever activities are being planned for the client, all those things should have a common goal, that the counselor should have the well-being of the client in mind. All those things should not harm the client. Okay. So the alliance between the counselor and the client needs to be therapeutic in nature. So that is why the counselor should have the well-being of the client in mind, and the client needs to feel safe and feel free to share their deepest concerns or insecurities and anxieties. Okay. So that this will help the client to explore themselves further. Okay. Unless the client feels free to share things, that will not lead to exploration of the problems. Okay. When you talk about counseling stages in a later video, we will also talk about the different stages of counseling. So there, one of the important stages is exploring the problems or the issues that the client has come up with. Okay. So the counselor-client relationship, it needs to be therapeutic in nature, and the ethical principles need to be followed in this relationship so that it helps the client to be able to share their deepest concerns, insecurities and anxieties, and that will help them to explore themselves further. Okay. So hence it is very important to follow the ethical guidelines in forming a relationship with the client. Now coming to the fourth aspect of becoming an effective counselor, this is called licensing. So another important criteria is to have proper license to practice as a counselor. Now why do we need a license? Because the license ensures that you have received proper education, you have received proper training, and also you have required aptitude and qualities to become a counselor and practice professional counseling. So that is why licensing is an important requirement when you enter into the counseling profession. Okay. Further, as part of licensing, one is also required to keep on upgrading oneself by acquiring required credit points by doing different courses or workshops or training programs, or engaging in continuing education. So this is called as continuing education. Once you are in a particular profession, in the counseling profession we are talking about here, you need to keep yourself upgraded also by joining different training programs or workshops. Talking about Indian context, in India, as of now, there was no licensing procedure for counseling practice earlier. It was that one is required to have a master's degree or a higher degree in psychology or counseling and additional diploma in counseling. However, recently the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India, has come up with an act It is called National Commission for Allied and Healthcare Professions Act in 2021, which will govern the process of licensing of counselors now onwards. So you can refer to this act on the website for further details. That will give you an idea about how this licensing procedure is required in order to practice in the practice professional counseling. So to conclude, in this video, you learned about what all are required to become an effective counselor. First, one needs to have a proper qualification and training. Second, one needs to have an aptitude and also necessary personal qualities that will help in creating a therapeutic relationship, a therapeutic climate for the client. And this will facilitate the client growth. It will help them in making proper choices and making decisions. And ultimately, this will promote the well-being of the clients. Third, an effective counselor needs to follow the ethical guidelines in counseling practice. And finally, licensing is also required that you need to have. So with this video, you completed your first module, that is Introduction to Counseling Psychology. We covered three topics in this module: what is counseling, then types of counseling, and then who is an effective counselor. So I hope you are now clear about the basic concepts. In the next video, we will proceed further to understanding the counseling process. So till then, happy learning.